There was some horrifying but unsurprising news from Scotland just 4 days ago, and that is that a 74-year-old woman was arrested simply for holding a placard on the street in Glasgow saying coercion is a crime, here to talk, only if you want. No harm done, a victimless crime, and yet she was criminalized for doing that, for trying to save women for coercion. And at least three police officers went and arrested her outside the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital because in Scotland there's been outrageously oppressive law which has stripped people of their rights. Free expression is a human right. Freedom of assembly is a human right. Protest is a human right. You'll find these things in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or indeed the European Convention of Human Rights. Of course, it's a Scottish National Party administration in Scotland with the support of the Scottish Green Party. And they never cease to bang on how much they're in favour of the European Convention of Human Rights. It is a flagrant breach of the European Convention of Human Rights to do this, to criminalise this woman who wasn't doing any harm. And with crime rates going through the roof, was that really a priority for the police? With all the murders, all the rapes, all the burglaries, all the kidnappings, all the assaults, all the burglary, all the robberies, armed robberies, thefts, vandalism, arson, drug dealing on a massive scale, people smuggling, forced prostitution, all that. But are they going to go for those people? Nuh-uh, no way. Violent criminals, SNP's letting them out early. But when it's a little old woman who's trying to protect other women from coercion by men, they come down on her like a ton of bricks. Now, where was she? Outside this hospital. So there was this terrible law passed, I think, 2 years ago in Scotland, saying that people are not allowed to peacefully protest within 200 meters of an abortion clinic. So they're not allowed to try and say to women, think again, if you want help, practical help, money, nappies, formula, anything, moral support, we're here to help. You don't have to do this today. You could change your mind, come back again and do it tomorrow. But once you've aborted your daughter or son, your child is never ever coming back. You can never ever get that baby back. And obviously, if you've got a shred of moral decency, you will be racked with guilt for the rest of your life. Because what could possibly be more shameful than parents murdering their own children? And these women, they could be forced into it by their husbands, their boyfriends, their fathers, under threat of violence or anything like that, or just that he'll leave the relationship, which I suppose is not quite forcing them, and so on. These women could be drunk under the influence of drugs, they could be mentally disturbed, but the abortion industry is keen to harvest as many little children as they possibly can. So it's absolutely sick they're not allowed to do this. Do we live in a free society or not? And this is not remotely anti-Scots. There'll be some Scots who are just as aghast as I am. Now, even if you think abortion is entirely acceptable, that girls and boys are not even human when they're in utero, that someone who's respiring is not someone at all. These people are unpeople, that those who are growing are not alive, that those who are moving of their own volition are somehow not alive, that a human being can conceive a species anything other than a human being, because people have got this endless capacity for self-delusion, for lying to themselves, for tricking themselves, for casuistry, saying a fetus is not a child, a fetus is not a human being. That's like saying a teenager is not a human being, or a geriatric is not a human being. They are. Show me photos of embryos. Well, they don't look like humans. They do look like humans at that stage of life, just like someone who's 99 years old looks like a human at that stage of life. Anyway, but you could still be virulently pro-abortion and recognize that it's a terrible breach of her human rights to take away her right to demonstrate, which is essential in a democratic society. And it was never used against the abortionists, the child abuse movement, who sadly are prospering. So President J.D. Vance has taken up this issue. Unfortunately, what he said is inaccurate, that people praying within their houses, which happen to be within 200 meters of one of these slaughterhouses, are criminalized. I think it's only if it's actually outside your house. Even standing outside there praying silently, even inside your head, and so on. So people are saying, if you're worried about pregnancy, come and speak to us. We can help you. Yeah. And so on. So Gillian Mackay, who's a Green Party member of the Scottish Parliament, and she has denounced and insulted this poor old woman, saying it's shameful. Well, Gillian Mackay is absolutely shameful. What is shameful is the mass murder of children that Gillian Mackay is so in favor of. Oh, I'm not for it. I'm for choice on it. Right. So if you say you're for choice on slavery, that's being pro-slavery, isn't it? If you're for choice on rape, that would be being pro-rape, isn't it? Saying, well, if the perpetrator wants to do this, absolutely fine. So you'll see this with the abortion industry, always taking the side of the violators against the victims, of the powerful against the most vulnerable members of society. And who's more powerful of all the professions than the medical profession? They have the power of life and death over people. They've got the deadly poisons, they've got the offensive weapons, and they've got this legal cover to get away with it. They're highly educated, they're very wealthy, they're very highly regarded, which is why they were always able to get away with the most appalling acts of abuse, with murdering their patients, their adult patients, with molesting their adult patients, with sexually abusing children. Not saying it's majority of doctors, it's absolutely not. It's a small minority, but it'd be more so than probably in any other profession. So it really is disgraceful what's happened to this woman, and it is just a screaming injustice that children experience this ritual murder every single day for the enrichment of a certain segment of society. And obviously, there are a lot of these demagogic politicians who go along with them. So a lot of people, a lot of nutters, a lot of sick psychopaths out there, a lot of people lying to themselves, murdering their daughters and sons and saying it's acceptable and so on. And they need to be called out on it. And of course, they should be publicly shamed. It's like, there are people who seem to be very nice who've done this. You're like someone you think is a lovely person and find that he sexually molests prepubescent children, the most horrific, monstrous thing imaginable. And obviously, that person is then an outcast. And so it must be for women and men who murder their own kids, because the fathers are often just as responsible, that they encourage, cajole, pressurize, coerce, facilitate in any wise. They're equally guilty, perhaps even more so. They don't go through the discomfort, the inconvenience, or the pain of pregnancy, whereas the mothers do. It's even less excusable for the fathers than it is for the mothers. Anyway, so yeah, Gillian Mackay urging the police on, yet more political interference with policing by her. So it's really horrific what they're doing. And causing harassment or alarm or distress is a crime, right? Fine. In which case, there's absolutely no need for this law, the 200-meter law buffer zone. So you can be fined £10,000. So it's really horrendous. And what they're doing is informing people. An uninformed choice is no choice at all, as Oliver Wendell Holmes said, that some people are frankly dim and don't realize that an embryo or a fetus really is a human being and really is alive. They've been duped by weasel words like proceeds of conception, products of conception. I'm the product of conception, so are you. Cluster of cells. I'm a cluster of cells, so's everybody. Every human being is made up of cells that hold together, right? That doesn't mean the person's not alive and not a human being. It's preposterous. There are some people who are just unintelligent and will be fooled by these euphemisms, like Orwell said, to make murder sound respectable, because obviously the abortion industry wants as many victims as possible. They make money out of it. They're proud of it. They enjoy it. They boast about it. Yeah, there really are some sadists out there who get a thrill out of killing little children. So it's very worrying. It's very sick that someone who did no harm at all, who actually tried to save children, is being branded a felon, may be prosecuted, may get a big fine. And what if she refuses to pay? What if she can't pay? Go to prison. Scotland doesn't even have enough prison places for dangerous criminals. And a harmless little old woman who tried to prevent violence against children, that she could go to jail, was an extremely dangerous man, maybe beating children black and blue. Of course, he must never see the inside of a jail cell. So you see that is what the abortionists are like, always taking the side of the violence against the victim, blaming the children for existing in the first place. So it's all very dispiriting, very worrying, and part of this mind virus is spreading across the world, the idea that human beings are not human beings. And that's what génocidaires always say, that they're victims, that they're somehow subhuman, that they're somehow dirty, evil, have to be extirpated. Well, thank you for watching my video, and do what you can to save innocent life. Goodbye.